Welcome back to another edition of the Mindset Entrepreneur video podcast. Thrilled to have you back, and I'm here with my special guest, Jim McCorkle of Woburn Municipal Federal Credit Union. Jim, thanks for joining us today.
Mark, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, just to make it easy for the show today, this is what we're going to do. We're going to call Jim the Jim of all trades, and he has a brother named Jack, by the way, so it's kind of ironic. But in this case, we're calling. I want to give a little background of Jim. Not only does he have a full-time job as the president and CEO of a credit union, he's been in banking for 27 years?
Over 30, Mark.
Over 30.
Over
okay.
30.
He's been working at TD Garden as security, a head of security for 25 years?
26.
26.
Event security manager for 26.
26 years. He's a middle school teacher, a recently now middle school teacher. He's a goalie coordinator, right? And to top it all off, he's an identical twin. So a lot of hats there, Jim.
Yes, a lot of hats.
A lot of hats.
But it's fun.
I guess I wanted to start out by, you really have a diverse set of interests and things that you've really been involved in over the course of your career and life. And I guess let's start simple. When you were a kid, seems like whatever you're doing, you really are doing a lot around people and serving people and supporting people. So where did the passion come from growing up for that?
Well, Mark, I'm one of 7. So growing up in a house with 6 brothers and sisters, my parents, 1 bathroom, which always made it interesting.
Wow.
Kind of like the Brady Bunch. But I just came from a big family. On my mother's side, there's 18 grandchildren. So every family function, weddings, baptisms, whatever the case may be, there was always a ton of people around. So I think that's where, my comfort level came with being around a lot of people and being involved with people.
And I know you have some interest and passion around entrepreneurship in general. So, was that kind of, did you take any unique jobs as a kid, or was that just, where does that passion come from in looking at small companies and stuff?
Well, I think like back in the day when I was growing up, I did what every other young boy did, deliver papers, which was fun. But then I moved on, and in high school we worked at Lambert's Fruit, which was a very different, unique job, but a lot of fun. And then once I got into college, I started in banking as a part-time teller during the summer at Baybank, and my passion just built from there in the banking world, in the financial industry, and it's just taken off from there. So.
But Jim's leaving out an important detail, everybody. As we got to know each other more, we're finding out we have quite a bit in common, and Jim had the best job shadowing opportunity when he was a kid. You got to tell our audience, Jim. So cool.
Mark, yeah. When we were in 4th grade, they had asked us to write a little story about what we might want to do when we grow up. And then they asked us to try to contact somebody in that industry to see if they'd be willing to let us job shadow them for the day. So I was fortunate enough that at the time my passion was sports. And I wanted to get into the sports field, possibly television. So I wrote Bob Lobel at Channel 4, and he invited me to come, and I spent the day with Bob and watched him put together his sportscast and watched him put together his script. And I was there till probably 11:45 midnight the night I worked with him. It was quite an experience.
I'm so jealous.
And to this day, I still have the script.
And he was such a pioneer in sports and making it funny and engaging. So Jim, I want to talk about, you had a milestone moment in your career that not everybody has. And when you started out in the banking industry, being a teller, and you had that opportunity, you were asked, your contributions and impact were noticed, and you were asked to enroll in their management training program. And to me, that's quite an honor, because not everybody gets that opportunity. What do you think they saw in you where they gave you that opportunity?
I hope what they saw was my passion for giving 100%, really trying to solve problems, trying to make the customer experience a memorable one. So when the customers left the bank, that they were 100% happy. And from a marketing standpoint, I think the best marketing you can have is your customers going to tell somebody else, because I think that's really what's going to drive more business to you. So I'd like to think that's what they saw in me. And like I said, they presented me with the opportunity, and I was glad to accept it. And that really was the genesis for where I am today. So I am very thankful that I was presented that opportunity, and I don't think I'd be where I am today if not for that opportunity back then.
So Jim, I think I see one of your jobs as the CEO of the credit union as modeling a culture, a mindset, an attitude of service to customers. Mm-hmm. And why did service become so important to you? If you think of some experiences you've had on the other side over the course of your life, what really stands out to you when you're being served as marks of great service?
Well, I think it's important, and one thing I try to impress upon my team is accountability and ownership. I think we can all probably talk about some experiences we've had where the service levels weren't up to our expectations, and I think a lot of that has to do with people not willing to take responsibility or accountability or ownership of an issue or a problem, and then trying to do the best to make sure that they rectify or solve the problem. One of the things I always say to my staff is you got to inspect what you expect. So if we're setting an expectation, we need to go back and make sure that we're meeting that. If we're working on a problem for a member and we tell them we'll get back to them by 2 o'clock, then we need to get back to them by 2 o'clock, even if we don't have the answer, because that's the expectation we set. So just touch base with them for a second, let them know that you haven't forgot about them, you're still working on it, but you wanted to touch base with them and let them know kind of an update where we're at.
You okay if I steal inspect what you expect? Because I happen to really like that. I just had to write that down. I'm like, I like that.
No problem.
Right.
No
I'll
problem.
give you credit, I promise.
I haven't copyrighted it.
There you go. So, Jim, I know one of your values, and I know one of the things that I'm sure your employees really appreciate is your focus on employee development. And a lot of companies, those are words. Those people say, oh, well, we really care about the growth of our employees. And so beyond the obvious, why is that so critical, beyond making sure they enjoy their job, that extra piece?
Well, I think, Mark, if you're coming to work and you don't enjoy what you do, it becomes very difficult. I like to say I enjoy what I do. I thoroughly enjoy what I do. I like to say I've never worked a day in my life because I enjoy what I'm doing. So I don't really think of it as a job or work when I'm getting there. But I think it's important too, in my role, is to understand your staff and what their goals are, and try to get them prepared for the next level, whatever that might be. I do feel personally responsible to make sure that I'm developing them so when opportunities present themselves, that they're able to either move up within the organization, or if that opportunity takes them somewhere else, that's okay. I don't think a good manager or CEO should ever hold somebody back from pursuing their dreams, and I do feel an obligation to try to prepare them for that. Because as a manager or CEO, if I'm doing my job, if somebody's presented an opportunity and they move on, then I should be able to prepare the next person that comes in and get them to the point that I need them. So,
okay. And part of the integrity aspect of your job is really, I think, serving the community and supporting, the mission and values of the credit union. And I learned you're doing an incredible thing in the middle school, in Woburn Kennedy Middle School, I believe.
Woburn Kennedy, yes.
You and some of your fellow executives from the bank are teaching a financial literacy course over started in September?
September, correct.
All the way through Christmas. How are you able to, because getting a program in schools is very tough, and this is volunteer, obviously, so how are you able to do that?
Well, I think financial literacy in general is an important thing. Unfortunately, in my line of work, I see things sometimes on a day-to-day basis where people don't understand the simplest tasks when it comes to handling their finances. I know there's been talk in some states that financial literacy now has become regulated to be part of a curriculum in order for somebody to graduate. And I would be all for something like that through all the states. I just think sometimes people have gotten away from the basics of how to do things, and it creates problems down the road that they're maybe not so sure of how that's going to happen until it's already happened. And then they get stuck in a position where it's an uphill battle. So we've purchased a program from the Credit Union Museum up in Manchester, New Hampshire. It's called CU for Reality, where it's an educational class, but also a real-life simulation. So the beginning of the class starts off the first couple of weeks where we really talk about vocabulary, talk about terminology, different things, how to write a check, difference between deposits, withdrawals, difference between accounts, lending, things like that. And then we move into the second part of the class is we ask all the students to complete a job application for 3 particular jobs in the credit union. One would be a credit union person, one would be a bill collector, and one would be a payee. Then working with the teacher, we'll decide what 3 kids will fill those roles, and then the rest of the class, they have to complete a business plan. So for the second half of the semester, it's kind of a real-life simulation where the children will actually run their own businesses in the classroom during the class period, where they're either selling a product or a service. So for instance, for a service, like you could open a nail salon and do nails, or sell a particular type of product. We want them to put a little thought into it, so they can't just go out and buy a box of pens and then resell the pens. They have to do something to the pen to make it unique. But during that, they're going to obviously sell their product and services, so they're going to be taking money in, whether it's cash, not real cash, but simulated cash, or they're going to receive checks for the product or service that they delivered, and they're going to have to go to the credit union, make deposit. They're going to have to track it all in their own check register. And then at the end of the program, hopefully each child has run a successful business and they have money to spend. And what we do is we go out to all of our vendors and we gather different auction items, and we actually do a live auction.
Yeah, so great.
And again, hopefully what that's teaching them too, not even for the auction, it's fun, and obviously it's a culmination, and they hopefully will be able to walk away with some cool gifts. But it teaches them about budgeting too. So they'll get a list of all the auction items, and there'll be some that I'm sure that pique their interest and want it, but they're only going to have what they earn during the classroom to spend. So they have to budget. I want to bid on this, but I also want to bid on this. What's going to be my maximum bid here to make sure I have enough to bid on the other things? So.
Well, and I think beyond all the obvious benefits of the program, you know, the thing that stands out to me is you're addressing what I call the dream crushing syndrome. And the dream crushing syndrome is when a child, especially at the middle school level, comes home and says, you know what, Mom and Dad, when I grow up, I want to be a professional baseball player, or I want to do this. And then the mom and dad says, you know what, that's probably not going to happen, so you should probably think more practically. And there's so much of that that goes on. And what you're doing to me is not only are you allowing them to experience the fun pieces of business, but they can do whatever they want. So it's their own passion. So how often do kids get to really do something related to their passion at that age that's meaningful? My son said to me one time, he goes, if I want to start my own business teaching other kids how to be better at Fortnite, and I said to myself, sure. You want to learn some entrepreneurial skills and learn how to engage other people? Great.
That's tremendous.
So I love that you're doing it. That's great. I know one of the other big things that are happening for the bank is you've just opened 2 ATMs in the area. And why is that so important, Jim? I mean, beyond the obvious, people might think, oh, I know, but why really is it important?
Well, I think in this day and age of technology too, and our members' busy lifestyles, it's not always easy or practical to be able to get to the office to get their money and things like that. So I've been there since 2015, so we've really tried to upgrade our technology and our delivery service channels in order for our members who have busy lifestyles, as most of us do nowadays, to be able to do what they need when they have the time to do it. So allowing them the opportunity to go to either BJ's in Stoneham or Best Buy in Burlington, which are both on the Woburn border, to use those ATMs at no charge for our membership. And again, we're looking to put some other ones up in Woburn. We're having some discussions right now with some people about some different locations. So hopefully down the road we'll have a few more announcements to make. And again, we just want to be accessible to our members whenever they need us.
Well, and it feels like customer demands are evolving by the minute. You know, obviously with technology, like you said, but to me, it's attention span. No one really has an attention span anymore. It's like you said, the expectation levels are totally different. So I would imagine keeping up with that is quite a chore.
It's definitely been challenging, but exciting. You know, I've been in this industry over 30 years, and it's very different from when I started my way back in the 80s at Baybank. So. But it's been fun to be part of this and see it evolve. But I still think that you can deliver the old-fashioned way too, and that's what I want. That's what we're trying to be. We're trying to be both sides of it. For all this that we've done and all the technology and all the new delivery channels that we've offered, the last couple of years at our annual meeting, I've always said the same thing. We haven't taken anything away, and we never will take anything away. All we've done is add to the toolbox. So
Jim, I want to touch upon your experience at the TD Garden, but I have a couple of questions to wrap up what we're talking about here.
Certainly.
First of all, I think a lot of people genuinely don't understand the difference between a credit union and a bank. And if you're kind of determining where you want to bank, so what is, if you could educate the audience, and what is it that the Woburn Credit Union does perhaps that maybe other banks in the general Woburn area don't do?
Well, the biggest difference between a credit union and a bank is a credit union is a not-for-profit cooperative. It's owned by the membership. So
Like the Green Bay Packers.
just like the Green Bay Packers.
Right? Okay.
So every time a member joins a credit union, they have to put a predetermined deposit amount into a savings account. For us, it's $25, and I think that's typically what you'll see in credit unions. It's $25, and then basically that's your membership. So that money, that $25, always sits there, and that allows you to take advantage of any of the products and services that the credit union has to offer. Mark, right now, over a third of the population are credit union members, which is a pretty good size. I think credit unions, because of their not-for-profit status and the fact that they're trying to give back to the members, whether it's in higher deposit rates, lower lending rates, and things of that nature. And again, most credit unions are part of a large worldwide ATM network that's free for their members. Ours is the co-op network and the SUM network. So that allows our members, regardless of where they are traveling anywhere in the States, to be able to use an ATM and not get charged for it. So it's really, I have always said the biggest difference is credit unions will work together, where banks are kind of their own entity, and you don't typically see a lot of crossover. If we have members moving out of Woburn, we'll let them know that we're, depending on where they're moving, that there's this credit union or that credit union that probably mirrors a lot of the things that we do. So.
Gotcha. So Jim, I have to tell you, just transitioning for a second, I saw a testimonial about you online, and the word leadership is thrown around very casually. And the testimonial talked about your ability to bring out the best in everyone. And I read that and I thought to myself, is there any better compliment a leader could get than that? And even though I know you're a very humble guy, what is it that you think you do that makes people feel that comfortable with you, buy into your vision and your leadership style?
I hope it's the fact that I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves and get right down in the trenches with them. When we converted our system a couple of years ago, I spent a couple of days on the teleline. Frank, my VP, spent some days on the teleline. I'd like to foster an atmosphere where we're all in it together. Obviously, people have titles and there's different job responsibilities. But at the end of the day, I truly look at it as it's a team setting where we're all working together for the same goal. And everybody is equally as important. It's not one person that's above the team. So.
All right, so let's have some fun here, Jim. So 26 years at the TD Garden. I read you work with the Secret Service on executive protection for former presidents and Democratic candidates during the Democratic National Convention. I'm not going to ask you about the convention because I avoid talking politics every chance I get because I detest it. So what I want to ask you about is, could you share over your career maybe a couple of impactful experience you've had with either athletes or celebrities or people at the Garden that you've come into contact with that have been meaningful for you?
Well, the DNC was back in 2004, and I agree, I'm not going to get into politics talk, but kind of as a layperson, a banker, to get that access really inside of the Secret Service was, I can't even put into words what that meant in the briefings and the stuff that we were allowed to be a part of and have them ask us questions and get our input was second to none. It's been a fun part-time job. I've seen a lot of things. I've been fortunate enough to see a couple of championships with the Celtics and the Bruins. I was fortunate enough to be gifted a Stanley Cup ring, which
wow.
I treasure.
Oh, I would have had you bring that today, Jim. Just kidding. Go ahead.
But it's funny, and I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of athletes, a lot of performers, and I grew up playing hockey. I'm still involved. My daughter's still playing hockey today. It's my passion. So I have a special affinity for the hockey players. I think they're great. They really, they're the ones that are up at 5 in the morning going to practice, and I think they're really humble. And that's not to say that the other athletes aren't, because I think they truly are. But I just have a special place for the hockey players. But you had asked about, an athlete or somebody that I met that really made an impact on me. And I would really say it's two people, but I think people would be surprised to know that they're not athletes. Two people that I've met in my 26 years there. The first one, Sam Burns, a young gentleman who had progeria, who I was able to become very good friends with him and his family, just through his connection through the Bruins. And talk about an impactful young man.
And progeria is you age quicker?
Correct.
Right, okay.
HBO did a documentary on him, A Life About Sam.
Okay.
It was about 90 minutes. I was fortunate enough to be asked to go to the premiere in Boston, and it was quite an insight into progeria and what they're doing, and the work that his parents and his family are doing in progeria. And unfortunately, Sam's no longer with us. But, his birthday was just a couple of weeks ago, and I always make a point to post on Facebook, that I missed him. He was an unbelievable individual, and he really made an impact on my life. And the second person, again, a non-athlete, is, I'm sure you're probably familiar with him, Liam Fitzgerald, the fist bump kid.
Yep.
Again, what an unbelievable young man. Funny, witty, but it really kind of helped me to kind of take a step back and really look at what's important in life. I get to fortunately be around athletes and some cool things, but when you see what those two young men have gone through and the way they've faced it and the vigor and the smiles that they have on their face on day to day, it just, it's fun. So with all the athletes I've met, and I've met a ton of them, those are probably the two biggest people in my life that I've met there that have made an impact on me.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, Jim, thank you so much for coming on. The one thing, funny story, very quick 10-second funny story is Jim and I have probably walked by each other a couple of hundred times, and we had never met up until today. So just ironic because I'm a freelance sports writer. I got to tell you, the one thing, Jim, that to me is the key to human connection, approachability, is your smile. And you are constantly smiling. And
thank you.
It's such a wonderful quality, and I'm sure that contributes very much to people's comfort level with you. So thank you so much for coming on. Really, you're an interesting guy and had a lot to offer. I appreciate that.
Mark, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So Jim McCorkle, and my name is Mark Altman. You've been listening to another edition of the Mindset Entrepreneur Video Podcast. Thanks to our very loyal partner, Davideo Company, for their great job producing and shooting, and we'll look forward to seeing you for another episode next time.